To be or not to be, good viber, that is the question. And the voices inside of our head, ultimately, perhaps, maybe, sometimes, dictate who you are to be. And I wanted to talk about that in today's live stream video. So I have been thinking about and talking to myself in my mind, and I think we all do to some extent. We all have conversations. We all incline our ear to the voice that seems to be clearest only to us inside of our minds. And in fact, mine was saying to me, hey, Esther, you should go live, specifically not record this, and go live. And to be honest, that's why we're here. So this voice in our head, it has a lot of different names. We call it a lot of things because it's conveniently the same part of the brain and the mind that likes to call things, and different things, and names that it comes up on cue, and you get what I'm saying. It's like the label maker in our mind that defines things for us, that puts pieces of the moments that we experience into perspective, that writes the narrative of our story. And a lot of the times, this is also referred to in meditation as monkey mind, because it's kind of like this, take a moment to look at everything when you are attempting to look at nothing, if that makes sense. Monkey mind is pretty familiar term I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, and that's a perfect way to describe the inner dialogue of our mind. Now, I've honestly been struggling with my own inner dialogue the past couple of months, and it's been really interesting, to say the least. I feel now, I can say this more surely, as I cultivate a relationship with God, I am aware of the different voices in my head. And perhaps, I don't know, I don't really hear people talking much about the voices in their head. Unless maybe you're schizophrenic, then maybe it's brought up in conversations more, where you realize that there are voices that are not your own in your own mind. Mind you, some of them may sound like the same voice, but the intention uncovers the emotional charge in which is being expressed through the words that your mind comprehends and tells you. I think this is quite interesting. I think my mind thinks so too, which is why we're sitting here, we're having this chat. So the intention for today's video is to dive deeper into the mind, to acknowledge the inner dialogue, and to have discernment with the spirits that we are opening our ears to listen to. I will be exploring using light language throughout this process, so allow yourself to, take what feels good and fortify yourself. Do not take the rest. So they wanted me to know, us all to know, that the mind has this filter which really does its best to make sense of the world. And when we encounter something that does not have maybe it's not on our radar. Does that make sense? It's not something we're really sensing, but it's there, and some part of us is aware that it is there. It allows for this kind of gap between the perception of the energy that is truly there and the threshold in which we are able to understand and define and translate. I think translate is the best word for this energy to almost have an impact, to translate the impact that the energy actually has on our mind, on our being. Okay, so Esther, you said a lot, you were speaking in another language, and where's the practicality? They said, oh, we're gonna get to that, let's go. Let's dive in. So obviously, I'm going to be sharing and using my mind as an example in hopes to help whoever is watching, help you who's watching this with untangling your own mind. So first we're going to be just taking the first string, and this is a string of it's a red string. And there's anger, and there's shame, and there's a lot of fear in this string. If we keep pulling, yeah, we'll see the connections of this orange and yellow and green and blue, indigo, magenta, and violet. Okay, so all right, we pulled a lot of strings out here. A lot. So, each one is essence. I'm almost thinking of a puppet, and each one is like an essence in reality in our perception, and these strings communicate to us. The thing is, when we're communicating with the different matters and dimensions that we are existing in reality in this moment now, it can be quite overwhelming to listen to all of those voices, to know each voice is like, hey, your elbow's on the desk. Hey, somebody's listening to something. Oh, they said this. I was in the sauna this morning, and it was packed. Let's not talk about how packed it was, but let's talk about the fact that there was this group of like 4 women, and they seemed to be friends, and they were having a conversation, even though this place was packed. And they were having their conversation, and of course everybody else is quiet, and I can't help but hear this conversation. I'm trying to focus on other things. She's like, yeah, he said he'd never do that again. Oh, are you still seeing? Yeah, but don't tell, like, I'm like, I'm not listening, but I can still hear you. And so when it comes to that, you can hear the voices, but you do not have to listen to them. Understood? So tying this into emotions and temptations. Now, I have struggled, and it is a battle that I give to God, and I am so thankful for. Certain, my own demons can be quite slick. They like to think they're slick anyways. And the way it appears to me is like the subtle suggestion for something that I know that isn't good, but, keyword but, it's not that bad, right? It's not that bad, And it's tempting. The flesh is tempted. It's like this red string. It's heavy. And generally speaking, I have made rules for consequences, and this voice challenges the consequences to the rules that I make, because, go Viber, we're out here doing our best to do good, So if a voice is being like, too bad, obviously you already set up the groundwork foundation to be like, if you do bad, like, if you, the day you sin, you shall surely die. There are consequences. So, one, that voice be like subtly suggesting something that seems tempting to the flesh, but is not beneficial to the soul. And so remember this: when you do something that is not good, and you listen to that voice, it's just not good for your soul. It might feel good for your body. It's not. It weakens the discipline and dominion you have over your spirit, and ultimately, like, that's the name of the game: discipline and discernment. So what does that look like when it comes to the internal chatter of the mind? It doesn't mean that you have to silence them all and you have to say, shut up, I'm not gonna listen to you. Listen, you may still hear them, but only you can choose not to listen to them. People can keep talking like those girls in the sauna. Only you can choose. You hear that you, but dang, that was correct my voice. Only you can choose to not listen. And it do be hard, because when you tell the mind don't listen, the mind hears listen. That's another thing. When you say, and I don't know why, but I notice this so acutely when people say I'm not, or I don't want, or anything that has like I don't or not, like, I notice the mind doesn't, like, it's there, but whatever they say after that is what the mind's really clinging on. Like, I'm not that, like, antisocial. All the mind heard was antisocial, you, not you, antisocial. The not, just for whatever reason, and maybe this is like some weird, my own mind, it just doesn't click. I'm not poor. Oh, so you rich? Why don't you say you're rich? You just not poor. Like, you get me? Like, the vibe is just different. When you say you're not something versus saying you are the opposite, I'm still feeling inclined to think that you are mostly that thing in which you said you are not, versus just saying the opposite, because in your vocabulary, you are more familiar with that word than the other one. What's up, my cons? How's it going, fam? So I've been thinking about this, because that internal dialogue be like, I'm not gonna do this. As soon as I think that, like, it's too late. Like, what do you mean you're not gonna do this? Like, you should, if, say for instance, you're gonna be like, I'm not gonna procrastinate. You might as well just admit that you most likely are going to procrastinate. You might not want to, but that is whole different than what it is you actually thinking in there. And that's what I'm uncovering for my own self. If you really aren't gonna procrastinate, then you'd say, I'm gonna get my work done. So I notice this all the time. I think about this all the time. People tell me things and they say I'm not, or I don't, or, and like, I've seen this happen with my supervisor, and he was like, I'm not going to take your name off of, this document. And the person he was talking to was hysterically crying. All she heard was like, you're going to take my name off the document? Like, this is insanity. So when it comes to the inner dialogue, the second that you say you're not, I'm gonna, and things like that, I won't, you're choosing to use the vocabulary that is more aligned with what you do not want than what it is you do want. And I'll just do a quick, again, I'm not gonna fall asleep. I say to myself sometimes before falling asleep, if I really didn't want to fall asleep, I'd say, I'm gonna get out of my bed. So actions, being aware that you are kind of weak mentally. I've been getting through my own mind that, like, not for nothing, I'm weak. I do not have a strong fortified mind. I suck at focusing. I've known this, but I really realized that, like, I'll be like, I need to do this thing, and then I don't know what happens. So the beautiful thing about understanding that your mind kind of is giving you hints is that when you're aware of the keywords, the little phrases, the little things that your mind is saying, the little affirmations, the little mantras, whatever it is that you may be feeling, in those moments, you have a power to talk to that little chatterbox in your head. Another thing, what is good? I appreciate it, Hoko. Oh my gosh, really? It's only coming... What? Is it like the right side now? It might be because of the microphone. That's actually crazy. Oh, that is so weird. So weird. Hello, is this like the other side of the microphone? That sounds a little... Wow, okay, let's see. I have the microphone. I'm not gonna do anything crazy, but let me know if that's also still the case. I think... Thank you, Gracie. I appreciate it, and we'll figure out what's going on with that microphone. Now I'm so curious, like... This is the left? Is this the right? Okay. Anyways, my mind loves to make up stories. And that's cool. Stories are cool, I can be my own main character in my own life, in my own head. Like, you should too, probably, because your mind is in your head, and therefore you are the main character of your being. So, what does this even mean? How can we apply this? How can we apply this idea that we are constantly making stories? And I realize that I do this all the time. I'd be looking at somebody, they are not even looking they're not even looking at me. I'm looking at them and I'm like, they know that I had a porn addiction. I'm like, no, they don't even know your name. Like, sometimes though, like, it's beautiful that we get to make up our own story, because you can really have fun with it. Like, once I was walking my dog and the sun was setting and it was a beautiful day, and I started like yelling out at the sun, and I was like, thank you, God, I love you, I love life. And it felt like I was in a movie, and my inner dialogue was like, yes, you are the main character, you are the moment, and God is looking at you right now and smiling. And then I skipped as I walked my dog, and it was just a magical moment where I felt very, very much like, wow, that was so powerful. I felt so powerful. So I guess what I'm trying to say, there's also times where, even with I had a goal last year to publish my personal website. And to my surprise, this year I was on Twitter, and I actually saw my friend, she just posted her finished published website, and I was like, oh my gosh, girl, what you use? And she was like, oh, I use Cargo. And I was like, oh my god, I've been subscribed to Cargo's newsletter for like 3 years. I started creating a website like back in 2019. That's 6 years ago now. What? And the crazy thing is, I went and I was like, oh, let me check on that website. And I was like, dang, why didn't I just press the publish button? Like, this is really good. Probably because it was like $99 per year to press the publish button. But that wasn't the only reason. It was also because I didn't feel like it was good enough. Obviously, I was like, this is not good enough. And then guess what? 6 years later, I look at it and I'm like, dang, this is everything I ever wanted. Like, I will show you, because this is crazy. That's crazy. I literally made, this is a website. This is a, this is a wireframe for the website that I made like a few years ago, right? I made a receipt long wireframe for my website. And then I look at this website and I'm like, dang, I was out here really overthinking. Like, what? You're telling me 6 years ago I already made the website of my dreams and I just decided not to publish it or finish it because I didn't feel like it was good enough? And my mind convinced me of that? Like, and now my mind is like, sheesh, Esther, you really underplayed yourself. Like, girl. Like, and you almost forgot about this entirely. So, what we learn. Sometimes your mind is not going to be right about things, but it will stop you from doing things like achieving your greatness. And that was crazy to me. That was a mind blowing. I was like, you're telling me 6 years ago. And you know how many websites I made after? Over 5 websites that I never also published. Because Esther really was a little bit of a perfectionist when it came to her online presence, especially with her background in web design. I was like, I want to make it perfect. I want to make it everything. Like, she is the moment. No, that's another thing with the mind and perfectionism. Like, nothing is perfect, and that's what makes it so beautiful. That's what makes it perfect in a way. If everything was perfect, it would be so boring. The little kinks and the little flaws are such a beautiful aspect of life. Like, what's good? I want you to realize that God made you pretty much perfect. I mean, I'm pretty sure you are perfect. Like, you are the person that you're supposed to be. And the mind has expectations that they feel like are perfect, like, and these expectations you can never reach. Like, that's about it. Yes, don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. We all out here so that mind was like, girl, like, you can't do that. Yeah, perfect will stop growing. It will be like guys, imagine if every plant was like, no, I can't grow. I don't think the conditions are perfect enough. Like, no, a seed is like, I got a little water, I got a little dirt. That's all I need. I don't care where I am. I'm gonna grow and see how far I can go. So that is really interesting. Can the voice be suppressed or blocked? Absolutely. So I actually want to talk about suppression because that's a big part of some of the mental diseases that we see around society. It's kind of like it's like blocking a river from flowing. It doesn't solve the problem. It just causes the water to go elsewhere. So I was in a relationship back in my young years, my first ever relationship. At the time, I was obsessed with the mental disabilities, and so I really wanted to get as close as I could to someone that just so happened to be schizophrenic, and I was obsessed with understanding the voices in their head. I was like, what do you see? Because I know that you are really a shaman. Just in this life, you haven't arrived to that. So they would be like, I'm going through literal hell. Like, I have eyeballs looking at me, like demons saying I gotta like end my life and worse. And I'd be like, what else? What's worse than that? Let me know. I'm all ears. I was a little bit too eager, and that really weirded them out. And they did suppress it a lot, and it did not help. I mean, obviously, I wasn't really helping either. Obviously, at that time, but there was like a genuine fear that this person had for sharing the horrors in their own mind out. It was so scary that they kept it in. And I genuinely feel like that amplified the problem more, because it really isolated them from connecting to reality in that way. It was like cutting the voices entirely from reality, where there was a willing person that was all ears to diffuse the situation as much as possible. At that time, I was, of course, beginning my practice of my spiritual and mental healing practices, and I was also learning myself. I was also going through a lot of healing. It was a bit of a dark time, and there was a lot of suppressed, voices in my own head, which we're about to get to. So the idea was, and I was also very in denial of the negative, scary voices that were coming up, because I was like, I don't know what to do with this. This is scary. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. The situation got worse and worse and worse, and eventually we broke up because we both were in need of healing, and we were not helping each other in that process. We were not helping ourselves. And I think that's the first part, and that's why it crumbled. Like, you have to work on yourself. You have to listen to those voices yourself. So the suppressed part was still a big part. And I realized what happens when you suppress those voices. They get louder because they want to be heard. And yeah, you get this disconnection because you're ignoring them. That's kind of rude. And B, you're ignoring them because you're scared. And that energy, the fear, the rigidity, like the rigid feeling of like that thought, go down, can be pretty crazy. Of course, like, some people suppress memories that they have of galactic encounters because they've agreed that if they consciously realize that this happened in a reality, in a timeline where they are this human being, they will have a mental break. And it is something I've talked with the Galactic Federation about. Sometimes they'll ask, like, sometimes they won't ask, sometimes they'll just wipe it. And that is because, certain things, it's like, do you have the capacity to listen and process? If you do not have the capacity to listen and process, then I understand, but it does not resolve. You have to clear your mind to give space and listen. And sometimes that takes a lot of times. And sometimes that takes like a little bit at a time. Just acknowledging that this is not as scary as you think it is in the mind. Mind is a very powerful thing, and it does like to play with stories. And it likes to make epic stories. It likes to make exciting stories. It likes to make things that, you feel something. And so I think that's important to acknowledge. So when it comes to acknowledging the suppressed, they're really emotions usually. Those emotions have kind of lodge themselves into the physical body. Whatever situation happened and however you interpret it, it can become like this feeling of dis-ease in the body. And so maybe it's like a lump in your throat because you're afraid to talk in public about a horrific thing that happened to you, and you have the story in your head that if I tell people, it's going to get worse or repeat itself, or whatever story you have accepted is either going to, most likely in the case of the mind, trying to keep you believing. You have to acknowledge the fear of our own mind. It can be a block. So what really helped was acknowledging that, like, there is this beautiful, omnipotent being, the creator of all life, God, source. This oneness is within the mind as well, and it is silent, and it is observing, and it created you in a way to experience your experiences. And so if you feel this insane emotional charge for whatever narrative your mind is bringing up, because your mind loves stories. And you know, your mind's not the problem, but let's be real. Social media, it definitely has an impact in the mind in terms of how we create stories, what we accept as normal, what we believe, our belief systems, what perfection looks like. All of these things, you know, are building this reservoir for our mind to pick and choose what kind of stories it shares with us, how it narrates our lives. If we're the helpless, you know, the humble human, or the higher than life hero, or, you know, so many things in between. So talking to God and acknowledging that there are multiple conversations, there are multiple beings that you can talk to in your mind, have helped a lot. Sometimes you can even pit them in front of each other, like, okay, Archangel Michael, can you talk to my fear of being seen in public? Alright, like, the mind is a beautiful place, but it can be also very chaotic. So I like to see each of these what do you call them, the inner sensors, because every emotion, again, it, good or bad, but you'll see a lot more in bad, because it's a denser energy, so it's easier for it to get lodged in there, in your body, and that emotion, because your body will tense and it will hold that emotion, and then that emotion, that impulse within your body will start sending messages to your brain, and then your brain's like, what's going on? Like, why is our neck so tense when we think about X, Y, Z? And so your mind will be like, your neck is tense when you think about showing up in the world as you're publishing that book, because you're not going to do it right. It's not going to be perfect. You know, you've never done this before, so you're feeling that tension, right? And that's actually coming from maybe a conversation that you had, or, you know, you heard something and there was this lodging emotion that was planted in you, the seed that made you believe that you can't do that. And even though it is a part of, you could say, like, your truth is to show up and write the book or whatever, right? To show up, you have to overcome this feeling that has been planted in you, quite like a weed, and you have to pull it out. And the only way you can weed out your mind is if you acknowledge the weeds in the first place. Like, you can't just go to a garden and blindly pull stuff out of the ground and expect that, you have to have discernment and know what that weed actually looks like. What is that voice inside your head saying that is impacting you negatively, or causing tension or stress, or, you know, it's something that you keep thinking about? And it's, you know, I think it's so funny in modern day social media, and I go and, you know, the political scheme of things right now is very entertaining to watch unfold, but I realize how much people pay attention, and the stories that they tell, the stories that they share, and it's almost like, it's kind of like he said, she said type of situation. And when that happens, which it happens because monkey see, monkey do, like, as humans, we see something, it was a part of survival, now it's more of like a social thing. What happens is we accept things as, oh, that person thinks that's important, so that must be important. Or we can't change society because this is just how it is. Things like that, you know, and these narratives are repeated like mantras in society, causing these belief systems, literal living, you know, beings within your mind that are ready to throw their mantra at you anytime that you have any ounce of a thought that it goes against this belief system. And so as you connect with the creator, understanding that, like, you're divinely created for a reason, for a purpose that is so aligned with your soul and your heart and your mind, but your mind is really the one that we're honing in on here. You are able to identify what is true for you and weed that out. Weed the things that are not out. You know, society, social media, it's kind of like pollution. Even some people, absolutely. I mean, some people pollute. I remember once I was in the car with a friend and they were driving, and I remember they were drinking some water or something, and then they threw the cup outside. I was like shocked. I was like, what is going on? Do they not know that that's not a garbage can? Like, that's the middle of the road. Like, you crazy right now. I should have got out of the car right there and just picked it up. I was contemplating that, but you know, my mind of common sense and self-preservation was like, don't get out of this moving car right now. It's going 50 miles per hour. But anyways, it is true that an excess amount of words coming from other people, and I'm starting to feel it myself when I go on social media and I consume, eventually I'm like, yo, what is this skibbity toilet riz? Like, why is this a part of my vocabulary now? Like, is this actually helping? Is this actually helping my mind? Is it actually? So it has been important to realize that you will always have weeds in your garden, even if you pulled out every single one of them now. And we're talking metaphorically of your mind and the different thoughts that frequent your mind that you are aware of, whether it's like, okay, I think about the weather, I think about what I'm going to do at work, I think about what I'm going to eat, I think about, you know, my health, I think about my family, XYZ, you know. All these things are like plants because you frequently visit them and they inspire you to act in a certain type of way. So when you decide, like, you have discernment and you realize some of these are actually harming me, some of these thoughts I'm scared about, and they're only here because they're thorny and I don't know how to remove them. That's the thing, you know, with some of the negative thoughts that want to stay and they're like, right? And in your garden, they kind of manifest as like thorny vines that are kind of a bitch to take out, because thorns, you want to get those in your fingers. and second of all, the vines can creep up on other plants and strangle them. So yeah, once you realize that, like, cleaning your mind it's not always that easy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes cleaning your mind is as easy as just sweeping the room, saying namaste, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, right? And boom, your mind is clean and clear and so aligned. But sometimes you see that you have some kind of freak of nature plant in your mind that has been ruling for far too long, and you have to call upon God and, you know, the guides that are here to assist you in this lifetime to clear that out, because it's kind of out of control. So of course, even when you take all, and it takes time, I think it's important to be gentle with yourself and your mind. Yes, you got to be mindful of what you let in your mind. Every single conversation or idea that someone shares with you is like a seed, and you are immediately given the ability to either listen or hear. If you hear it, then in one ear, out the next. If you listen, then you are receiving that seed. Once you receive that seed, it is going to be planted in your mind. It kind of goes, I like to think, from your mind down to your heart. And the heart is this place where the emotions really start to manifest. And that's why the seed is lodging itself into your being, because you'll have some kind of visceral reaction. It could be very small, it could be, you know, just a feeling, but you're going to react, and that's how you know the seed has caught. So having patience and being gentle with yourself. Some people's inner sensors are just ruder than others. I'm gonna be real. You hear them and you're like, it's kind of like an internet troll. You're like, bro, do you realize that the internet is still real life? I mean, like Like, are you like this in real life? And sometimes I'm sure they are. Like, I don't know. But I'm assuming so. Like, that is their mind. That is literally the little sensor in their mind, the little inner dialogue, chatterbox, saying, oh, you should say this. And they're like, ooh, you're right. And then they say it. So, if we don't get our mental right, then it is going to do us wrong. Like, it is a garden. And just like any garden, you have to have patience, especially with realizing that we've all been susceptible to seeds that we don't really want or need in our garden. They're there, and that's just the nature of how things go. Even if you pull out all of the weeds, there are still going to be seeds in the seed banks, and more weeds may pop up, and you're going to have to go through the process of taking them out again. So God, I pray that you help us with cultivating our minds so that we may produce good fruit, that we may have good thoughts. You know, how does that verse go? Whatever is pure, whatever is simple, whatever is true, think on these things. That is a good verse, and I'm gonna look it over. I'm gonna look it up unless somebody knows it off the top of their head right now. Alright, they're saying Philippians 4:8. Let's see if it's Philippians 4:8. Woo. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Amen. Like, that is Philippians 4:8, and it's true. If you want to be admirable and, you know, good, then you should study these things. What does a good inner dialogue look like? One thing that I know from my experience personally is that the mind loves questions. And it sends it on like a quest. It literally sends your mind on a quest when you ask a question. Oh, what's 2 plus 2? Your mind goes into the math locker room. Oh, it looks at the book. It opens up the elementary book. It sees the equation 2 plus 2 and it sees the equal sign. It found the answer, 4. So the mind loves going on quests, and questions are a really powerful way to take control and cultivate your mind to produce better seeds, to better understand your own nature. I'll ask some questions now. What is it that you want to do with your life that brings you joy and makes you feel so good doing? Who do you want to be around? What kind of conversations are you looking to have more of? How can your mind help you develop during this chapter of your life? What area of life are you wanting to invest more of your time in? How can we better use our mind to achieve our goals? Thank you. Yeah. How can we clean our mind of distractions to increase our focus on what matters? I'm going to ask that one again. How can we clear our mind of distractions to better focus on what matters? What matters to you? Okay. So, those are some questions. And I think the best exercise to do for someone with a wandering mind or a very active monkey mind, chatterbox, is to ask questions in meditation. And even though you cannot stop your mind from talking, you can at least direct the conversation, and that in itself is a really beautiful thing. So, yeah, I think it is important to give your mind something to talk about if it's going to talk, and to acknowledge that when you do have like those negative emotions, those are coming from somewhere. And you can identify where in your body that is lodged, what emotion, what experience has imprinted that on you. And through having conversations with your own being, you can heal that. You can release that energy. You can change your whole identity if you wish. You can do so much through simple conversations with your own mind. And it is so productive. Now, I'm not going to say, Big Brother doesn't want you to do that, though. Big Brother wants you to stay blind and listen to them and their subtle suggestions, because, I don't know. I mean, I think that could be my mind just sharing the storyline that they were subscribed to up until right now, because we chose to let that one go. I believe that it is up to you to make your story what it is that you wanted to. I think the biggest thing that I'm learning is that we're all going to have flaws, and there's going to be parts of the mind that will feel like, it's against you, that it just wants you to go into this dark, low vibe place. And it is so powerful to choose to just do the best you can, and to acknowledge and instill in your mind that I am doing the best I can, and I choose to do good. And that's another thing, when it comes to deciding and defining your own being, it really is with those internal choices of the conversation is going to be tempting. It's going to be like, you don't need to show up to that thing. Nobody even wants you there. It's so much energy, so much work. But you say, I said I was going to be there. I'm the type of person that keeps my word. I'm going to go. And it might be like, you're so nervous. You could say you're sick. You're nauseous. You can't go. And you gotta be the one that takes that story and says, I'm actually really excited. I'm so excited that my tummy is rumbling with excitement, right? So, my mind also overly analyzes at times. And if you're not careful, you could end up just having a conversation with your mind, and people will be looking at you like, girl, is you okay? Because you've been talking to yourself for like half an hour, and I'm not sure if you're all together there. This is the importance of I find during the beginning and end of the day is the best time to really talk with your mind. Of course, throughout the day as well. But I find a lot of power in starting the day and ending the day with just acknowledging that, hey, there's a bit of me up here, and I want my mind to know that we're doing our best. I appreciate them for doing their best, and even if sometimes the negative dialogues come in, I appreciate the power and strength that God gives me to overcome any lower energies. What has also helped a lot is journaling. So much. So The Artist Way is a great book that I finished reading a while ago. It was like a 12-week course on higher spiritual creativity by Julia Cameron. Really good book. And in it, they challenge the artist, the reader, to read and write every day. So the reading part is more like reading the thoughts in your mind and putting them on the page. And she suggested that you should do 3 minimum pages a day. And I thought, that's a little excessive. 3 pages? The thought is that the first 1 or 2 pages are going to be the inner dialogue, the more negative side. That's like, this happened, that happened, this is kind of pointless, I don't know why I'm doing this. And then that last page is going to be where the inner child can really come out and play, It's no longer being censored because the censored part of the mind has tired itself out. And so that's actually quite good. And yeah, Jim, it's okay to not be okay. I think, big hug. We all go through it. And I feel you. Sometimes I used to beat myself up for not being 100% or like reaching whatever goals or whatever the expectations I had in my head. I literally would be like Drill Sergeant Esther to me at the most emotional time. I'd be like, suck it up, Buttercup. You better do what you said you're going to do right now. I don't care if you don't feel like... And sometimes I'm like, okay, I know that you are looking out for me and you're doing your best with what is in the arsenal, so I appreciate that, and I'll just hear it in one ear, out the other, and so it goes. But yeah, that has helped a lot. Journaling has helped a lot with giving me almost like a receipt of my mind to see what am I really thinking about on a daily basis, and also the creative side of how do I interpret and translate my mind into paper. What phrases, what words are coming up. Honestly, it's been really helpful for reviewing the thoughts that I'm having when it comes to discernment and cultivating this inner garden. It has really helped with having a journal to see what I'm thinking, because even your mind can gaslight you into being like, you didn't think about that, it ain't that deep, it hasn't been that long. And then when you actually have like a receipt of this is what I've been thinking about, I've been drawing these kind of things, I've been using these kind of words, like this has really been on my mind. It really does feel like this internal sense of validation that, okay, you're not crazy, this is a thing. And you have this perspective where your mind it really is just a part of you. It is not the controller, although sometimes I'm sure it loves to throw that spin on things, and it does have control over certain aspects, but ultimately it is there to assist you with controlling your emotions and your body and how you cultivate and choose to cultivate your human emotion, your human experience, and your soul. So journaling is great. If you cannot journal, then voice notes. Just record yourself, however you document your thoughts. I think just taking a pencil and a paper and writing it down has really, really helped me with uncovering parts of myself that I was kind of suppressing. I just didn't really know how to listen to them. It had been so long that I was just in one ear, out the other, as a form of, safety mechanism, that now giving space to some of those more suppressed thoughts by putting them on the page and kind of going through that range of emotion that, bubbles up when you explore something that you've been ignoring for so long, but it has been pressing you, is really interesting, and it's so rewarding. Like, I totally recommend that you should, right after this or right now, you should just get a piece of paper and you should write down what it is you've been suppressing. What are these fears in your mind? What narratives are you telling yourself that you don't actually believe are true? And having these kind of conversations with your mind can really change the trajectory of your life. And so I hope that this helps you as you continue to cultivate your mind, your body, your soul, because you're not alone. We are in this together. And I'm very excited to see what this next chapter has. So you have the pen. Your mind may be suggesting certain scenarios, but it is up to you to write down what it is you want to happen by actively choosing and deciding and having discernment with what it is you believe is true and believe in general. So thank you. Discernment. If you want to practice it, write stuff down. It really does help. And I really do hope that you just have a little conversation with your mind and take that time. Okay, we'll take a few breaths before we close right now. Mishkdo pa itokundrujum. Thank you. Okay. I pray that we are able to have clear discernment and decide to do good. I pray that our minds assist us in doing good, and that the energies that we are struggling with, the internal dialogues that seem scary, will provide deep insight into our own soul's growth and our relationship with God. Thank you for joining me in today's live vibe. I pray that you found value from it. You can press a thumbs up if you did. And I will see you in the next video. God bless. Namaste. Oh, okay. Most people probably left by this point, but let me know. If you comment, I will share a link. I'm planning on doing a meditation series. I'm offering it free. If you want to donate something, you can, but I just feel led to really tap into doing more group meditations and having like kind of build in public, but like meditate in public, like just, it's going to be on Zoom, but just having a space to practice consistently meditating, that is something I'm looking for, and I'm very excited to facilitate and hold a space where we can all cultivate our minds a little bit more actively. So yeah, if you're interested, just comment like meditate and I will share the link. Okay, that is all. Thank you. God bless. Namaste.